writers in town, obviously. What is it about someone that makes you want to say, you know what, I see you playing. Stop by my office, or I'd like to talk with you sometime. Yeah. What is it about a writer?
For me, I make my decisions, and every publisher is different. But my job is I have to have writers that are creating songs I can go out and get cut. And I really, for me personally, in the realm of creative, commercial hit songwriting, I have to have writers that win by perspiration, not inspiration. Those guys that really approach the craft as a 9-to-5 job. Those are the people that, me personally, that I really tend to gravitate to and I work with, that my creative style is the best for. Those guys, like Tim Nichols said, hey, when they wrote Live Like You Were Dying, it was just another day they were going in to write. For the staff that I've created, they're really writers that that's the way they approach this. They get up every day and they look at it as punching a clock. They're going to go into the office and they're going to sit and they're going to write songs. They may only write a few lines. They may write an entire song. They may write 3 songs that day. But tomorrow, whether they feel like it or not, they're going to get up and they're going to go into the office and they're going to write songs. And there is another style of songwriting that's real inspirational based. And those are guys that, they feel the inspiration coming, or it hits them and they have to dump this song out. But they may go weeks without writing a song. And just being frank and honest, lots of times the most talented people, they're not the ones that succeed at the highest level. But sometimes those people that are gifted with some kind of strange, odd gift, they're more those inspirational people where they may only write every once in a while, and they feel like, oh, I have to create only in certain circumstances, or if I'm not feeling it, I can't create. And those people may end up writing just something amazing, and they may write just 1 huge song or 2 huge songs. But for me as a publisher who does this for a living, I need those guys that are going to get in there and crank out songs every day and are going to have hit after hit after hit, and songs that are cuttable and cuttable and cuttable. Because for us building a business, I don't need like 1 song every 3 years. I need like songs every single day. And, to kind of give it a sports analogy, it's just, lots of times the most talented guy on the team, they're not always the guy that moves to the next level and succeeds. Lots of times the most talented guy in high school, he may make it to college, but when he gets to college, he goes, oh, wait, hold on. These are all the most talented guys, and the people that really step up to say, hey, this is really hard work. So lots of times it's like the guy that's above average talented, who is like second best on the high school team, he moves up to college. Well, guess what? He has all the work ethic that went into it to become second best on the high school team. Well, now he's in college and he already knows that work ethic. And now he becomes one of the best on that college team because he learned that work ethic. And then those guys that go on to the NFL, there are guys that, got there strictly off of talent, and then all of a sudden they fall apart because they never learned those nuts and bolts of really building that foundation of what it takes. And that comes with songwriters too. I would always rather bet on, the above average talent guy that's willing to do it every single day and not take no for an answer, rather than that, real eccentric guy who is absolutely unbelievable, but he may only channel that once a year. And I had something else with that. I just lost my train of thought. What was your question again? How I look for those writers? Yeah. For me, how I end up finding them, 100% of the time, every songwriter that I have signed, I have met through another songwriter. And whether it was through something like this, or through somebody at BMI, or through somebody at NSAI, it was literally a songwriter telling me, hey, you got to hear this guy or this friend of mine. And like Tim Nichols mentioned earlier, like you kind of end up in a class of people that are your peers. And that doesn't mean you're the same age by any stretch of the imagination. It's like, you you'll meet somebody in this class, 2 people will end up co-writing a song that are here today. And they just were kind of attracted together to do that. And as you get out and you meet other songwriters, you'll, like attracts like. It's sort of the cream always rises to the top. And as a publisher, where there's one good songwriter, there's always 3 or 4. They always hang out together. And so you'll notice like it's sort of a class or a group of people that become really successful all together because they're all striving and challenging one another. And that's always how I have found songwriters, is another songwriter telling me about somebody and me being turned on to them and going, oh man, they do something really special. But I'll tell you, like for myself, I make my decisions based on people first and music second. And I have one of my very best friends who's a really successful publisher. He looks at me like I'm just tack, I have 3 heads. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I make all my decisions based on music first, and I don't care what kind of people they are. I don't care if they have to smoke dope all morning to get started. That's fine with me. Well, for him, that works fine. But for me, that's not necessarily my style. And so at our company, songwriting isn't a team sport. But in my mind, if everyone at the company can get along and have a mutual respect and support for one another, it's going to elevate everybody. And it ends up, it's not a team sport, but we all win bigger if we work as a team. And what I mean by that is, like one of my songwriters, Marv Green, he wrote Amazed, and he just had a big hit called Creepin' for Eric Church. Well, if he's down in the kitchen in the morning and he's with his co-writer and they're drinking coffee, and Tim Nichols comes in and he's with his co-writer and they're drinking some coffee, and these guys are shooting the bull and saying hello, and they both go into their separate rooms. They have a like for one another and a respect for one another that they sit down, and Tim Nichols and his co-writer go, hey, you know what? Marv and Jim Collins, they might be writing a hit today. Like, we better bring our A game because chances are those guys are. And in Marv Green's room, he's going, man, Tim Nichols and Craig Wiseman, they could be writing a hit today. Like, we better bring our A game and elevate it up because if we don't do it, man, they're going to write the hit today. And what they're not doing is they're not going into the room and bad-mouthing or trash-talking the other guy about what a complete jerk he is and then wasting 2 hours of their day focused on this negativity. And in the creative world, a creative business is just that. It's a relationship that is creative, and it depends on you being in the mental position to go create. You've all worked jobs before, something like, an office like this, where you see that guy coming or that girl coming that just brings you down. There's always negative, and you just want to ditch into a cubicle so you won't have to talk to them. Well, man, if your job is writing songs, the last thing you need is something that's going to be bringing you down. And so for me as a company, that's really, it goes back to I make my decisions based on people first, because I want all those people to have the same mindset and the same goals at hand so that we're all kind of working together, even though they may not be writing songs together. And you've all been around people that, whether they're getting negative in your job, or whatever your job is, and they start trash-talking the boss, well, there's always 2 other people who are ready to jump on board and trash-talk the boss. Well, guess what's happening? Nothing. No productivity is happening at that moment. But so for me, I go out of my way to do the best I can to try to not have those influences in the office. Because if I have 10 songwriters and one of them has that natural all-day negative, this town sucks, the radio sucks, song sucks, every songwriter sucks, every artist is horrible, well, naturally they're going to bring down 2 other writers. Well, now all of a sudden that means a third of my staff is going to be completely non-productive. And that would just kill the company my size. And so for me, I also go back to saying, before I sign a songwriter, I ask myself, would I mortgage my house for this? And what I mean by that is, I signed a songwriter named Jeff Bates that I saw this guy perform at a songwriter that I was meeting with who was trying to get a publishing deal with me. he was playing me a song he wrote, and I heard this guy singing one of the demos. It's like, oh my gosh, like, who is singing this? And he said, oh, it's this guy I wrote it with, and he lives in Little Rock, Arkansas, and he's a welder, but he plays in a band there. And I said, listen, can you introduce me to him? We need to go to Little Rock. So literally the next day we got in my car and we drove to Little Rock to see this guy sing. And he just had one of the best voices I'd ever heard. I brought him here and set him up on some co-writes, and I signed him to a publishing deal, and I got him a developmental deal with Mercury Records. And come to find out, he had a horrible crystal meth addiction. And he ended up getting arrested, and he went to jail, and he stole a bunch of stuff. And at this point in my career, I put all my eggs in this basket, just thinking like, man, I know this guy is so talented. This could be sort of my ticket. And then here I find out, like, he's in jail. And he had broken my trust. He had broken other people's trust around us. And he went to jail, went through rehab inside of jail. But I had to go to the president of Warner Brothers and say, hey, remember this guy I signed and I spent $96,000 of your money on him? Well, he's in jail. And I'll never forget the president of the company said to me, hey, Rusty, there's some reason why you needed to learn this lesson this early in your career. And he said, well, look, let me make some calls. Let's figure out what jail he's in. Let's get him moved to a different jail where he can serve, his time and his rehab concurrently together. But long story short, he got through rehab. He got out of jail. I got him a job laying brick. He earned my trust back. He earned his publishing deal back. And I ended up getting him a record deal on RCA, and he had 3 really big hits, and he had a near gold record, and he went on to have a successful career. But through that process, it really made me become who I was as a publisher, to go, man, I really need to have this level of belief of everybody that I get in business with. Because to me, it's people's lives and dreams that we're dealing with. It's not, songwriters to me aren't cattle. They're not just moving through and you sign them, and if they work, great. If they don't, great. To me, I really want to kill myself to make it work. And so that's why I ask myself, would I mortgage my house for this? Because if I can say yes, then I'll do it. And if I can't say yes, then I just don't. Because as a songwriter, the thing that you need to find is a publisher who is your partner. Because as a songwriter, you can't do it on your own. You can sit and write songs all day long, but you need somebody to help put you in the right situation, somebody that's going to help you, challenge you to create at a higher level. You're going to need somebody to help pitch your songs and really get them out there. And for me as a publisher, I can't write these songs. I need somebody who's going to be writing all day long, and so that I can take them and go do something with them. But together, it's really a partnership to where that songwriter needs to fully have confidence in, hey, they know that when they create this song, they're putting it in the best hands possible, that I'm going to work as hard as I can for that song. But I need to know that that songwriter is working as hard as they can to help both of us succeed. And it kind of feeds off one another. The harder I work, the harder they work. And the harder they work, that inspires me to work harder. And it builds that way to a success level. Because you've all met songwriters who go into a room and they go, man, I don't want to write that because my publisher won't like it. Or I don't want to write that because nobody's cutting that. Well, man, in my viewpoint, the minute that negativity starts, you just got to put the pencil down and leave, because it's over that day. And it's real important for me that all my songwriters know that they are fully supported in my belief in their creativity, and that I can help them move their career forward. And that way, it really feeds off one another, and that's how you're going to be a successful songwriter, by understanding that, hey, your career is, what's vital to the success is having that publisher that can help you go to that next level. And as a publisher, hey, I would have nothing without a great songwriting partner who's creating those